welcome into the offseason. I'm Cassie Carlton alongside Lou Canellis. All right, so my reaction sitting in that press conference room is Caleb Williams handled this very maturely. A second-year quarterback who came out and didn't deny anything that was said in that article, opened up and said this is exactly what happened, owned up to it, but also called it a distraction at the time, which I thought was notable because otherwise it was Ben Johnson answering questions about it last week, his teammates answering questions about it the week before as well. And Caleb Williams is like, yeah, this happened before I came to the Bears on the visit. I met with the Minnesota Vikings. I had a great visit with Kevin O'Connell. He was coach of the year that year, and I was excited about that. Then I came to the Bears, and I think what he was trying to emphasize is that it was hidden in that article that he wanted to come to the Bears after the visit, and he wanted to stress that he wanted to be the quarterback to change the narrative around quarterback play in this city and with this franchise, and he was welcoming that challenge. What was your reaction?
Thank you, Caleb Williams, for coming right out and saying, before I even take a question, I'm going to go out and tell you guys exactly what I feel happened. And he spoke for what, 3 minutes, 55 seconds,
yeah.
4 minutes out there. He told everyone exactly what had happened, what had transpired prior to the NFL draft back in 2024. And as you touched on, Cassie, and I won't repeat what you just said, he admitted everything that we had read in that article. And he said, listen, I'm a young player going into the NFL. I have a father who's a very successful businessman. My parents are my two best friends, so I have the utmost respect for them. And I was going into a situation potentially in Chicago where quarterbacks have not succeeded. And I met a guy, a head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, who's had great success so far in the NFL, coach of the year. And I was intrigued. Wow, it'd be cool to play for him. So I hold no ill will against Caleb Williams. I think for 23 years old, he has been incredibly mature through this entire process.
A lot of fans consider this a non-story. To me, this was not a non-story, right? Because it was out there. And what if this did matriculate into something where Caleb Williams did decide to find a way to not be drafted by the Bears 2 years ago? It would be a huge story, and it's something that I don't think you could ignore.
One of the reasons why he wanted to get in front of this and talk to the media about it yesterday, no matter what the Bears may have told him public relations-wise, I'm sure he said, listen, I need to talk about it because it's not only a distraction for Caleb Williams, it's becoming a distraction for my teammates. And this is a new team. For my head coach, who had to talk on my behalf week one of OTA.
Did a great job.
And he did a great job. And I love the fact that he respects his new head coach, the organization, Ryan Poles, from the top on down, Kevin Warren, and everyone else, to the point that, listen, I'm going to deal with it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's behind us. I'm a member of the Bears. I can't wait to change the narrative around Chicago Bears quarterbacks. And in regards to Case Keenum, I find it alarming. I was at the NFL owners meetings, and after a number of different interviews, I felt like this was Tyson Bagent's job as the backup quarterback. And now I'm realizing, Ben Johnson said it himself, that there's a battle right now for the backup quarterback
And Case Keenum
position.
was the one taking second-team reps yesterday.
He was taking the second-team reps yesterday. And here's a guy in Keenum who's, as you said, played a lot of football games out there over the course of his multi-year career, and he was ready to retire. He didn't even want to come back and play football. And then he met with the Bears organization and was impressed, and now is spending time with Caleb Williams and is tremendously impressed with a kid who has got all the talent in the world and is willing to work at the job, which not many guys that have the talent Caleb Williams has are willing to do.
I think Caleb Williams is starting to pick up on that, where whether it's his personality, his coaching style, him changing his footwork, having him under center, he's like, I'm going to buy into this Ben Johnson effect and see where it can take me in this team.
I was really focused in on Ben Johnson, and I watched him bounce around the field with the energy that he bounces around with. And now I'm watching this young guy, very intelligent, smart coach on the field. It's his. Man, he is the number one. Everyone answers to Ben Johnson, including these $100 million athletes that are on the field. And the respect that they show Ben Johnson, for me, was a bit alarming for a guy who's never been a head coach before. He hasn't won one game as a head coach. Terrific offensive coordinator. We know what he's done the last 3 seasons in Detroit. We know what that Lions offense was like last year. But he commands the room, he commands the field, he commands Hallis Hall right now. And that's leadership we haven't seen from a head coach at Hallis Hall in a long time.
Well, he has a standard, and that's for sure. And we've seen that the first 2 practices.
There's a new standard at Hallis Hall, which I'm happy to see, because we've sat at training camp and have seen pre-snap penalties, drop footballs, guys going the wrong way.
And they just let the play out.
Right.
It was never even talked about until later in the season when that was showing up on game day, and players are like, can we get coaching around here?
Thank God there's accountability there. We haven't seen accountability in a few years.
And he has a lot of humility, too. So, for example, a couple weeks ago, he said he needed to work on his body language, which now we know goes hand in hand with him helping with his players' body language. And he also said that applies to DJ Moore, because that's a player we talked about body language plenty of times last year. He's like, no, this is not just a Caleb Williams thing. This is an entire team thing. Who are we going to be as a team? What is our identity going to be? And as he had said, it's like they're not going to show that sign of weakness. There's also some humility, and I appreciate this because I don't know if it was Sylvie who, at the end of the press conference last week, he was like, God, I love this guy, like jokingly after he walked off, because he nailed it, right? He addressed the Caleb Williams article, and he aced the test of how he wanted to handle that. So then walking off this week, Ben Johnson said, God, I love these guys.
Oh, he did?
Yes, he did.
I love it. I love that he recognizes that we have a job to do. All right. And I asked someone in public relations, and they said he has been a joy to work with. Again, Cassie, it's the off season.
I know.
All right. This team goes through another 10-game losing streak. It's awful then. Suddenly, all those great moments that took place during OTAs and potentially minicamp and training camp, no one cares about anymore, because we've all, Bears fans out there, the media, we've lived through the Bears winning the offseason and then have had bad regular season.
Which is why we take everything we see with a grain of salt. For example, Caleb Williams threw 2 interceptions this week at OTAs. Tremaine Edmonds picked him off. Jaquan Brisker picked him off, which is great to see Brisker back active on the field and on that defense. And then, you're looking at different ways that they're working, specifically the offensive line, because we know the interior is set with every guy that they brought in and signed. Now it's like, all right, left tackle, we thought Karan Amagaji got the 1 reps week 1 at left tackle. This week, it's Ozzie Trapillo. And I was actually kind of surprised by that. I thought it was going to take a little bit longer for Trapillo to actually get the chance to get those reps with the first team. But they're using it as musical chairs right now, Ben Johnson said, until Braxton Jones comes back. And that's going to probably be training camp where pads come on, and that's time for someone to win that job. But I got the sense that they're not too high on Karan Amagaji. And as a 3rd-round pick a year ago, came into a tough situation, dealt with an injury. I'm not so sure he got the coaching fundamentals that he needed in his first year. And now he's kind of thrown into the fire like, hey, can you be our starting left tackle? And it's like almost a similar situation as he was with the Vikings, where it's like, is this guy in a fair position, and is he ready to handle that yet? Then you have Ozzie Trapillo, who's drafted in the 2nd round, and I think everyone's like 6'8". This guy is massive. He's smart. Like, he can probably handle that. And you put him there to start, maybe we feel a little bit better about that. Or maybe it's Braxton Jones again.
Amagaji, don't forget, missed all of last year's offseason camp. So he wasn't healthy enough, and he missed, his senior season as well at Yale. So he wasn't healthy enough until the middle of last season. So really, this is his rookie year, if you're going to be honest about Karan Amagaji. And I'm a bit surprised like you were, because to me, if it's his rookie season, then he needs as many snaps during OTAs as possible. And Ozzie Trapillo shouldn't be out there unless the coach, the offensive line coach, Dan Rasher, had some doubts about the play of Karan Amagaji, because they've looked at film. They've looked at what he looked like, Amagaji, while he was out there last year.
Not their guy either. Not
their guy either.
Guy.
Exactly. While Trapillo is, and Trapillo, had a good season last year, 2nd-round draft pick. Maybe you get him out there as much as possible. We don't know how this coaching staff feels about Braxton Jones, who's coming back off the ankle surgery. I don't think they're serious about moving Darnell Wright from the right to the left
He
side.
left it open at the end, but the way that he was talking early on in the press conference, I was like, and from all we've seen, Darnell Wright being at right tackle.
It's been a good couple of weeks for OTAs, but I'm really jacked about next week's minicamp, because for 3 straight days it's mandatory, and you feel like Ben Johnson's going to pick the intensity up a level.
And because it's mandatory minicamp next week, that last OTA, it is optional. A lot of times the veterans, they don't show up for that. They start their summer early. So really it's the last time we're going to see everyone on the field before things start training camp.
How about this?
July 14th?
The Lions don't even have a mandatory minicamp.
Really?
Yeah, we talked about it with Dan Miller. It's something that their head coach does not feel strongly about, and they don't even have a mandatory minicamp.
Do people show up for OTAs?
They show up they show up when Dan Campbell tells them to show up, and that's been obvious. And you're right, they were all in camp at OTA.
All right, Lou Canellis, thanks for coming on the show.
Love it. Thanks for having me on.
Still to come on the offseason, we continue the Caleb Williams conversation with Laurence Holmes from The Score. We are joined now by Laurence Holmes. You can hear him on 670 The Score on Spiegel and Holmes from 2 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Laurence, it's like Caleb Williams, the news of the offseason with him seemingly never stops. First, it was the ESPN article. Then it was Albert Breer reporting that the Bears are working on his body language and pre-snap procedure this offseason. I remember talking to Albert Breer back at the Combine 2 years ago when Caleb Williams was going to be the number 1 overall pick, and he was very much in the know of, the Bears not being too concerned about him and the stuff that went on at USC, feeling good about drafting him. Now it seems like Ben Johnson comes in. He's like, we need to sharpen some things up with this quarterback heading into his second year before things maybe get out of control with him becoming this mega superstar in the city like Chicago. What were your takeaways and reaction to the report?
It's about what you would expect or want from a new coach coming in, is that they're going to see things that maybe other people are not going to see. It's funny though, Cassie, because I've been thinking about this a lot. Now, to be fair, I was in the Justin wars. I was a Justin plus picks guy. Okay. That's kind of how I felt. But over the last year, like especially during the draft process, the types of information that I got from people who I know who work in pro organizations, folks that I knew who worked in college, some of the rhetoric around it really kind of bothered me. And it actually pushed me over to Caleb's side, because I felt like some of the things that I was hearing was unfair about him. Then you add in how bad things were from a coaching standpoint last season. I understood exactly where he was coming from. And I think most Bears fans understood where he was coming from too, with what happened last year and where quarterbacks go to die and all of that stuff. His position is clearly defensible, and he was proven right by a lot of things that have happened with the Bears over the last year. But I think that there are a lot of people who are waiting for something to grab onto when it comes to criticism of Caleb Williams. And I'm not here to say that the criticism is invalid, but I think there are a lot of people that didn't necessarily like him in the draft process that have been sharpening knives until the opportunity came where they can get at him. I like that what Ben Johnson has said is like, I'm going to look at the tape and I'm going to make up my mind about what Caleb Williams is and where he needs to improve. I don't know if I necessarily buy the body language thing. Then again, I am old enough to have covered Jay Cutler. And I do remember that was one of the things that people didn't like. I think people will accept the body language stuff if there is a lot of production, but it can't hurt. He is the de facto leader of the team. It can't hurt to try and be better at leadership. And if that's what Ben Johnson is asking him to do, I'm okay with it as long as Caleb's okay with it. And so far, it seems like he's okay with it. Ryan Poles has made the adjustment. He's moved on from Waldron. He's moved on from Eberflus. And now I think he has a partner. That's the way that I look at what's going on with Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson. To me, it feels more like a partnership of what they have going on. And now you have a better line of communication. You have a better overall plan. And that's where I think Caleb Williams is going to benefit from the fact that there's a real plan that's in place now. And now when you have expectations, and the expectations are laid out, everything in his football profile to this point says that Caleb Williams can excel when given guidelines of what he is expected to do. He's clearly a competitor. You can see it in the way that he goes about playing the games. The fact that he didn't want to leave games. He didn't want to sit out games where the Bears were eliminated from playoff contention last year. I think all of that speaks to a young man who wants to be great. And now I think he has the coach that is in position to push him to be great.
I'm curious, just from his psyche standpoint, how much like his motivation changed when Ben Johnson got hired, because we did hear it in his tone of voice of like he got what he wanted. But if the psyche of Caleb Williams has changed at all because he feels like everything is aligned, and we know now from the ESPN article that he did not feel that way going into his rookie season when he was being drafted by the Bears with Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus, who now that it's out there, like they just didn't feel confident in those coaches to be the ones to get the best out of Caleb Williams.
If we're looking for little moments of leadership, I think that one of those little moments that you can look at is Ben Johnson's opening press conference and Caleb sitting front row. Mm-hmm. It's clear that he was looking for something in a coach that he now at least has it seemingly in Ben Johnson. Someone who understands. Like I go back and like when I think about the Wickersham piece and I think about what Albert Breer wrote, I start thinking about all those moments in last season and stuff starts to make sense. You know, I use the Kendrick Lamar line, you know, the evils of Lucy were all around me. So I went running for answers. And that's when Caleb had the press conference, when you heard him say, oh, I spoke to my college coach. I didn't call him. He called me. That was, you're reaching out to Lincoln Riley. That says to me, he's like, this doesn't feel right. And I need someone to explain to me what's going on. And I'm not getting necessarily what I need from my offensive coordinator or my head coach, that he went back to people that he trusted. Like all of this stuff now in retrospect makes a lot of sense. When you have the still moment of Waldron laughing on the sidelines and Caleb kind of like, why is this guy laughing? We're getting pounded. I'm getting destroyed and nothing's funny. You know, like I think there's a lot of people who can respect that perspective and that point of view and understand, while also the two things can be true. While also, if Ben Johnson puts a sizzle reel together of all of that and says, look, man, you are the face of this franchise. And we need you to instill confidence in not just the people that are with you inside the huddle and on the sideline, but the fans of this team too. It may seem trite, but I understand it. But yeah, I have an immense amount of empathy for everything that Caleb Williams went through, all that was asked of him. And I think that even with everything that went wrong last season, it was a productive enough season for anyone to look at it, if you're looking at it honestly, and go, there was some success inside that season.
We'll be right back with more from Laurence Holmes right after the break. He's an interesting coach because he's like new school in the fact that he's all into the analytics and stuff, but he's old school in the way he is interacting with his players on the field. We've seen the intensity come out in just one OTA practice. We saw him get after Cole Kmet, and everyone's like, if you get after Cole Kmet, you know something's wrong. And you know that details were not being paid attention to in the past. How do you think the intensity that he brings, and we've already seen in this offseason session, translates, and how do you think the players respond to it?
Cassie, a couple weeks ago, Speaks and I had Lomas Brown on the show, the Detroit Lions legend and broadcaster. And before he got off the phone with us, he said, pay attention to those practices. The practices are going to be different under Ben Johnson. So we were like, well, what do you mean? He said, there's going to be a level of intensity and accountability that those boys haven't seen yet. And now, like, hearing your reports, people who've been out there saying, oh, Ben Johnson's that guy. Like, he is paying attention. It's not just going through the motions. He wants to set a tone. And that's what new coaches do. And he knows offense. Like, he clearly understands what his concepts are. And if you look at the hires on his staff, he has hired a bunch of disciples that also know what it is that he wants done. So he's going to push. And I like that. the no block, no rock thing. I like that everyone is going to be accountable. If you want to flourish in this offense, you have to give Ben Johnson everything that he is asking for, or else he'll find someone else to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's Ben Johnson, and as you mentioned, like his coaching staff, I think it's everyone, because we've all heard Eric Bieniemy with his cuss words that he's very colorful, which I love. I think it's great, and I don't think it's entertainment. I think he's genuine, and that is his personality. And so, but it's funny because like the cameras are set up right in front of him. He knows exactly what's going on, and he's like, I am not going to change.
Nope.
And I think that I respect that 100%. It's also with Antoine Randall L, where we've seen videos and saw it a little bit at practice. Like he's almost in the drill with the wide receivers running alongside DJ Moore or Al Harris, someone who played in the league. And one thing that stood out when I talked to him was like, I will never ask a player to do something that I didn't already experience. And it's him having like touch points with players, walking Tyreek Stevenson through why his body should be faced one way or the other. Like all that, that's not something that we saw with the last coaching staff. So I think that's all going to be beneficial to everyone. And I also think that's why there's going to be better relationships between players and coaching staff, because you're already seeing them being coached harder and being held accountable, maybe in different ways from the past, but that's exactly what they asked for. So I think that's exactly what you're going to see.
I really like the changes to what I expect the Bears offense is going to be this year. And I think it's going to make life easier for Caleb Williams once he gets a hold of it. And I keep thinking about what happened with Jared Goff. Now, Goff put up incredible numbers in LA. This is one of one. So I'm not trying to throw shade. You look at the difference in the player, and some of that is maturity, some of that is buy-in, some of that is scheme. All of that stuff came together for Jared Goff, and we saw him put up incredible numbers. I think Caleb Williams has more talent than Jared Goff. And because of that, it's exciting to think about what he could look like if he can just do some of the basic stuff that Goff did. And Goff did it at an extremely high level of proficiency. If he can touch that, then there are going to be those moments where Caleb Williams has to make a play or has to do something exciting or has to throw on the run, running to his left and then throwing back to his right and throwing a dart. That type of special stuff that he can do is going to be accentuated by what this offense is all about.
And I think Ben Johnson also believes he has more talent than Jared Goff. Final question. This division, I feel like I don't know where the Bears are going to finish. If you were to take a guess, how does this division end up shaking out at the end of the year?
I would like some clarity on who's quarterbacking the Vikings, because until Aaron Rodgers...
Not JJ McCarthy?
Yeah, until Aaron Rodgers is in Pittsburgh, I'm uncomfortable, because I could see him continuing the Favre arc and end up in Minnesota.
He's making a return to Soldier Field regardless then.
Yeah, that's why what he said was so brilliant yesterday. It's like, oh yeah, there's a team out there that's going to be at Soldier Field. That's right. Pittsburgh and the Vikings are both going to be there. So, but yeah, I think the Bears will find themselves in competition I think Detroit is still really good. I think the Bears are going to find themselves in competition with the Vikings and Packers for second place. I just hope that Jordan Love hasn't been fully actualized yet, because that guy is trouble. And it looks like he's starting to get it, and they're starting to give him the weapons that he needs.
Does Caleb Williams throw for 4,000 yards?
Yes.
Love it. We'll end on that. Laurence Holmes, thanks for joining the show.
For extended interviews and previous episodes, make sure to check out The Offseason on Fox Local or the Fox 32 YouTube page. And The Offseason is now available on Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.